You know, when you build a house, the one thing you absolutely take for granted is the ground underneath it. Like you pour the concrete, you frame the walls, and you just assume the earth is going to stay put.
Right, the foundation is supposed to be the boring, predictable part.
Exactly. But imagine waking up and the ground itself is shifting. Not like an earthquake, but a slow, continuous, grinding drift.
And suddenly your doors don't close right, the plumbing disconnects.
Yeah, and you have to rebuild the very infrastructure you rely on while you are, still trying to live inside the house.
That is actually the perfect way to describe the global landscape right now. I mean, the foundational systems holding our society together, how we trade, how we vote, how we learn, they're all shifting right under our feet.
So true. Welcome to the deep dive for Sunday, June 7th, 2026. Okay, let's unpack this because our sources today are a wild stack of global briefings.
A really wild stack.
Yeah. We are looking at a massive central theme today, which is system shocks and shifting trust. Our mission is to understand how geopolitical friction, the breakneck acceleration of AI, and some truly bizarre new cyber threats are basically forcing society into a massive rebuild.
Which is a huge undertaking.
Right. We are jumping from a strange White House proposal regarding AI companies all the way to a warning about hackers literally putting on disguises to walk through the front doors of office buildings.
It is a profound moment of transition. We are moving away from old assumptions about safety and reliability, and we have to construct new ones quickly.
Yeah, and to understand this digital scramble, we actually have to start in the physical world.
Because real-world conflicts are the primary catalyst for everything else we're going to discuss today.
Definitely. There is a massive amount of physical instability right now. Over the weekend, we saw reports of deadly drive-by shootings near the Israeli-occupied West Bank.
Yes. The briefings indicate a gunman opened fire from a vehicle at 3 different locations. 1 person was killed, 5 were wounded, and travel advisories were just instantly tightened.
It's awful.
It is. And what officials are actively investigating is the mechanism behind it. Like, did these assailants act alone or as part of a coordinated cell?
Which changes everything.
Exactly. That is a critical distinction because this is all playing out against the broader ongoing conflict with Iran that is entirely reshaping Middle East security.
But how does a tragic, localized event like that trigger a global system shock?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the economic ripple effects are staggering. When the Middle East destabilizes, global logistics panic.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we are seeing global airlines just halve their 2026 profit forecasts. Halved.
Wait, cut in half entirely just based on the anticipation of conflict.
Based on the physical reality of fuel cost spikes, the ongoing turbulence in the Strait of Hormuz and the broader Iran conflict make shipping oil treacherous.
Right, the shipping routes get disrupted.
Yeah, and because of that instability, OPEC Plus, the coalition of major oil-producing nations, they just greenlit their 4th quota hike since the Strait's closure.
Let's slow down on that for a second. What does a quota hike actually do in this context?
So think of OPEC Plus as controlling a massive global spigot. When a geopolitical shock makes oil harder to transport and prices skyrocket, they can agree to pump more oil.
Like increasing their production quotas.
Exactly. To flood the market and artificially stabilize those prices,
Yeah.
they are trying to manually force the foundation to stop shaking.
So physical conflict creates a physical supply shock, which forces businesses to completely change how they operate. And we're seeing that heavily in supply chain reshoring, right?
Yes, companies are just deciding they can't rely on global shipping routes anymore.
Right, like the case with CPAC Technologies. They're a Newark-based bioprocessing and medtech firm, and they just announced they're building a massive 137,000 square foot facility in Glasgow, Delaware, to be their new U.S. headquarters.
Which is a huge investment.
But wait, isn't that kind of an overreaction? Building a massive factory in Delaware takes years, and American real estate and labor are expensive. How does that solve a supply chain crisis happening right now?
Well, it's about long-term risk mitigation. They are bringing production and research and development right next to each other.
Oh, I see.
They're basically deciding that the geographical distance and the unpredictability of the Middle East are actually bigger financial liabilities than paying a premium for domestic operations. When the physical world becomes unreliable, you pull things closer to you.
Or I suppose you bypass the physical friction entirely by building digital bridges.
That is the other strategy, yeah. Nepal and India just signed a major pact doing exactly that. They are extending India's UPI, the Unified Payments Interface, into Nepalese banking.
And for anyone who doesn't follow global fintech, UPI is essentially India's massive instant real-time payment system. Extending it means cross-border commerce between the two countries becomes as easy as sending a text message.
Right. They are virtually linking their economies. But crucially, when you link economies digitally, you also link vulnerabilities.
Ah, of course.
So this pact includes creating joint cyber investigation channels to fight cross-border fraud.
Because when money flows digitally across borders without friction, crime does too. And that brings us to the ultimate test of trusting these digital systems, which is politics. We are looking at a wildly tight presidential runoff in Peru right now.
Yes, this election is a massive bellwether. You have the conservative candidate, Keiko Fujimori, making her fourth attempt at the presidency, running against the left-wing candidate, Roberto Sanchez.
Right.
The outcome will likely signal whether Latin America continues its rightward drift. And whoever wins inherits an economy under immense pressure from the global supply shocks we just covered. It carries huge implications for U.S. trade and security ties.
I understand the political stakes, but the technical stakes are what really catch my eye here. This runoff is their first national vote since their election commission completely rebuilt its results reporting stack.
Which is a massive risk to take mid-cycle.
Yeah, they had a bunch of logistical failures in the first round, so they rolled out a brand new system with biometric voter rolls and new tally transmissions.
The biometric aspect is fascinating. By requiring fingerprint or facial recognition, the system theoretically removes human error and local fraud at the polling station.
It's like hitting a pothole so hard you decide to rebuild the entire car mid-journey.
Yes.
But it begs a massive question. When the stakes are this high and the political climate is this tense, can citizens actually trust a brand new digital system? They centralized all that data.
That anxiety, the fear that the centralized systems holding everything together might just fail or be compromised, that is a defining feature of our era.
Yeah.
And that exact same vulnerability we see in a national election, relying on a single fragile point of entry, is hitting much closer to home for you and me.
How do you mean?
Well, the panic those Peruvian voters feel about their centralized election tech, that is exactly what local school districts and parents are feeling right now about educational technology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, K-12 IT directors are in the exact same boat as that election commission. When a critical system fails mid-year, you can't just casually swap vendors. You have to harden and fix a failing system under extreme pressure.
If you are a parent listening to this, you've probably had to log into portals like Canvas or Instructure just to see your kids' grades. Now, imagine finding out that the system holding your child's records is currently being held ransom, because that is actively happening.
It is. A threat actor group called Shiny Hunters completely compromised the Canvas system, defaced school login pages, and reportedly extracted a ransomware payment.
Terrifying.
And the breach mechanism shows why centralized systems are so dangerous. Shiny Hunters didn't stop at education. They chained these attacks together.
What does chaining attacks mean in this context?
It means they use the access gained in one system to pivot into another interconnected system. So they also breached DentaQuest, exposing the personally identifiable information and protected health information of 2.6 million members.
Across Medicaid, Medicare Advantage, and commercial dental plans, right? Oh, I see the connection now. A lot of these school districts contract with DentaQuest for student dental benefits. So now schools are having to send out parent notifications about health data breaches on top of their own educational software being hacked.
The trust is cracked. And once trust in an institution's ability to protect data cracks, it is agonizingly slow to rebuild.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the backlash is no longer just about cybersecurity. We are seeing reports from Education Week detailing a massive mainstream backlash against EdTech in general.
Which was inevitable.
Yeah. Superintendents and parents are going to war over the sheer impact of screen time on learning outcomes.
And that push to pull back on screens is colliding head-on with these massive new AI rollouts that tech companies are aggressively pushing into schools. The timing is incredibly difficult for educators.
Think about the teachers walking into school tomorrow morning. Students have been scrolling their social feeds all weekend, seeing the horrifying images from those West Bank drive-by shootings we discussed earlier.
Right, they're taking in all that trauma.
Yeah, and it falls on teachers and counselors to lead social emotional learning, or SEL, conversations to help these kids process real-world trauma.
Yeah.
So educators are managing global geopolitical fallout inside a classroom whose own digital infrastructure is under attack, while fighting parents about screen time.
It is a perfect storm of systemic pressure. And speaking to that infrastructure under attack, the broader cybersecurity landscape is evolving in terrifying ways. Just this weekend, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, added two deeply concerning flaws to their urgent known exploited vulnerabilities catalog.
I saw that. The SolarWinds ServU flaw, which is a denial of service vulnerability, and a Magento remote code execution bug.
That Magento bug is particularly severe, carrying a score of 9.8 out of 10. Remote code execution, or RCE, essentially means a hacker can send commands over the internet, and the server will execute them as if the hacker were sitting right at the terminal.
Wow, so total access.
It is handing over the keys to the kingdom. Right now, it is being actively targeted by card skimmer crews hitting e-commerce storefronts to steal credit card data.
But then you have this incredible plot twist. Google and the FBI just issued a joint warning about a cybercriminal gang called the Silent Ransom Group.
This is wild.
Wait, so this gang is sending out fake IT workers to physically walk into target offices like law firms and manually plant malware on site.
It completely upends our mental model of a hacker. We assume ransomware crews stay behind a keyboard in another country, but this is hybrid, physical, digital social engineering.
It's the equivalent of spending millions on a state-of-the-art digital alarm system for your house, but leaving the spare key under the doormat for a guy who shows up in a fake plumber's uniform. How do organizations even protect against that?
It is incredibly difficult. If a school or a small business has limited front desk vetting, a bad actor in a polo shirt with a fake badge can just bypass firewalls completely. It proves that physical and digital threats are entirely interwoven now.
Okay, so local businesses, e-commerce sites, and schools are clearly struggling to maintain control of their digital security. But that brings us to the most powerful tech companies on Earth. And the craziest thing in our briefings today is that the tech giants building the next frontier of artificial intelligence are openly admitting they might be losing control too.
Which brings us to the paradox of Anthropic.
Yes. Anthropic, the maker of the Claude AI models, just publicly called for a global freeze on frontier AI development. They are explicitly warning that model capabilities are improving so fast that humanity might soon lose meaningful oversight over the systems being deployed.
What's fascinating here is the sheer contradiction of their corporate actions versus their public warnings. They are calling for a freeze, essentially saying, this is too dangerous, everyone stop.
Right.
Yet simultaneously, they are actively shipping new, more powerful versions of Claude. They just filed for a confidential IPO.
Yeah.
And in a massive power play, they just poached Clive Chan from OpenAI.
Right. Clive Chan was the engineering leader for OpenAI's custom AI chip effort. So wait, let's back up. I'm confused. They want a global freeze on development, but they are literally stealing hardware leads from their biggest rival to build better chips. How does that work?
It highlights the brutal mechanism of the AI arms race, which is inference economics.
Inference meaning the actual thinking phase of the AI, right?
Exactly. Every time you ask a chatbot a question or have it generate a video, it costs the company massive amounts of computing power and electricity. That is inference.
And that's expensive.
Very. The ultimate bottleneck for these companies isn't just writing good software. It is having the physical custom silicon chips to run that software cheaply. Whoever controls the most efficient hardware wins the enterprise market. So Anthropic researchers might genuinely fear the safety implications of AI, but corporate Anthropic knows they have to win the hardware race to survive.
Some might call that candor. Others might call it a strategically self-serving move to freeze competitors while you catch up. And the public is absolutely catching on to this chaos. There is a documented AI vibe shift trending across TikTok and X right now.
The fatigue is measurable.
People are exhausted. Creators are complaining about slop content flooding the internet, meaning cheap AI-generated junk that ruins search results and social feeds. And while the public is cooling on AI, the platforms are actually charging more for it. YouTube just hiked its premium subscription price for U.S. users today, June 7th.
The mechanism there is purely financial. YouTube needs that subscription revenue to fund the massive compute costs of all their new AI features, like auto-dubbing and their VO-powered creator tools.
Right.
But by hiking prices, they're actually pushing power users away, back to ad-supported tiers or over to competitors like Spotify.
So what does this all mean? The public is exhausted, the labs are warning of existential danger, and now the federal government wants to buy in.
This is perhaps the most unprecedented development in the briefings. President Trump confirmed active talks to take a federal government equity stake in major AI companies, specifically naming OpenAI, Anthropic, and xAI.
Taking an equity stake, like the U.S. government owning a piece of a private tech company, Isn't that essentially nationalizing a massive chunk of the tech sector?
It would be an extraordinary departure from decades of U.S. economic policy.
Yeah.
The rationale being discussed is that if AI is going to generate unfathomable wealth and potentially displace labor, the federal government should have a direct financial upside to offset those societal costs.
Interesting.
And what is most notable is that this idea has found strange bedfellow support from populist movements on both the political left and the right.
But the implications of that are mind-boggling.
They really are. It creates an incredible antitrust paradox. How do you regulate a monopoly if the federal government itself profits from that monopoly's success?
Yeah, that's a huge conflict of interest.
What happens to competitive neutrality if a startup tries to challenge OpenAI, but OpenAI is part-owned by the state? How does corporate governance work when a federal administration has a seat at the boardroom table? We are talking about merging state power with frontier intelligence.
It's no wonder people are looking for escape hatches, and we actually see a counter-movement forming against these closed, massive vendor systems. Digital Promise just opened an $8 million grant backed by the Gates Foundation to build an open-source AI tutoring infrastructure for K-12 math.
It is a fascinating push for transparency in a market that is increasingly opaque. They want to give districts a way to use AI where they can actually see the code, protect student data,
Yeah.
and not be tied to a corporate monopoly.
Okay, so with anxiety peaking over geopolitical conflicts, physical digital hacking, and the sheer existential dread of who controls AI, it makes perfect sense that people are desperately seeking out immense, physically grounding human experiences right now. We crave the tangible when the intangible becomes threatening.
The data certainly supports that. Look at the massive gatherings happening globally.
Yes. Look at what happened in Madrid this weekend. An estimated 1.25 million people filled the streets for a mass in Corpus Christi procession led by Pope Leo.
Incredible numbers.
They carpeted the streets with actual flowers. In a news cycle dominated by war and technology, it was this massive, beautiful counterweight where the Pope preached a simple message that God stands with the poor.
Though it is worth noting the fascinating technological irony woven into that ancient physical tradition.
The live streaming.
Yes, this centuries-old physical devotion was actually eclipsed by its own digital footprint. The Vatican has heavily leaned into a modern live stream native production strategy.
Right.
Their communication team has aggressively expanded their short-form video output. So while 1.25 million people were physically there, which is astonishing, digital viewership across global platforms was reportedly much higher. It proves that even legacy institutions recognize they have to master the digital attention economy to spread a physical message.
And speaking of the attention economy, sports are serving as the ultimate great distractor right now, and in some cases functioning as quiet diplomacy. Two massive stories are capturing the internet today. First, the Iranian national soccer team just touched down in Tijuana, Mexico to train on the U.S. southern border ahead of the World Cup.
The diplomatic optics of that are incredible. Given the broader U.S.-Iran geopolitical conflict we discussed earlier, everyone is analyzing every visa and every security move.
And then on the pure entertainment side, the Vegas Golden Knights just took Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final in double overtime. Andrei Vasilevsky made some unbelievably clutch plays, and those highlights are just lighting up social feeds, pulling in people who don't even normally watch hockey.
It provides a shared cultural moment that has nothing to do with system failures or cyber threats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But perhaps the most profound story in the briefings today, the one that really brings this deep dive home, is out of Cape Town, South Africa. A medical team there just announced a major breakthrough procedure for treating dangerous heart rhythm disorders like arrhythmias.
I read this, and it is so refreshing. Because what makes this story resonate isn't just the scientific achievement, though that is huge for patients. It is the posture of the medical team.
They aren't hoarding the intellectual property.
Exactly. They aren't framing it as a proprietary flagship for one specific, highly funded hospital. They are actively and openly sharing the technique with heart centers globally across Europe and North America.
It's a brilliant reminder that some of the most important, life-changing breakthroughs happen far, far away from the profit-driven hubs of Silicon Valley.
It is a model of open collaboration in a world that, as we've seen today, is increasingly fracturing, closing itself off, and trying to build walls, both digital and physical.
It really is. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive today. We know that looking at how the physical and digital worlds are violently colliding right now, from energy supply shocks and hybrid physical cyber heists to the frantic race for AI custom chips and the push for open source alternatives, can feel incredibly overwhelming.
But staying informed is the first step to navigating that shifting foundation we talked about at the beginning. You have to know how the ground is moving before you can adapt to it.
If you are an educator, a parent, or just a citizen watching these systems change, understanding why they are changing gives you the power to ask the right questions.
This raises one final crucial question for you to mull over as you go about your day. If the very creators of frontier AI are warning that control is slipping, and the federal government is simultaneously exploring an equity stake in those exact same companies, well, will the future of AI look more like a regulated public utility, a private monopoly, or a national security weapon? And where does that leave the average citizen who just wants to keep their personal data safe?
That is a massive question and something we will all be watching closely. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.